Well, it's bad news for Stargate fans as Amazon has canceled its new Stargate series that was in development from writer-creator Martin Garrow. If you've been following Stargate online, you know this is something that we've been very excited about since it was announced back in November. Amazon and Martin actually invited me and my friend David from Dial the Gate to participate in the announcement that went out back in November. I'm going to do my best in this video to talk about the news, let you know what's going on, what's happened, but we're going to try and answer the question that you clicked on in the title. I think I'm going to title this video something like, why did Amazon cancel its new Stargate show? We've got a little bit of reporting. I'll warn you up front, we don't have an official statement from Amazon as of recording this video. I'm recording it on Wednesday morning, June the 3rd, the day after we found out about the news. Hopefully they say something public that is more clear, but right now we have some reporting from the trades and also from GateWorld sources to look at. I think we can get part of the way there to a decent answer, but we also, at least as of today, we have to sit in the difficult reality that we don't really know why Amazon has done this. It looks like a terrible business decision that is going to do damage to its relationship with Stargate fans and impact the long-term brand of Stargate. That remains to be seen what all that looks like, but let's get into it. Let's talk about the news first. Let's start here on our website, which you can find over at gateworld.net. The news was originally broken by Variety. We'll look at that piece in just a moment. You'll know this show was announced in November. Martin Garrow, who was a writer and producer on Stargate Atlantis, was creating a new show that was in the original canon, right? It was part of the existing television universe that we knew and loved. We worried for years, especially after MGM was purchased by Amazon. Are they just going to reboot it? Are they just going to start over? This was amazing news. Could not imagine a better outcome than bringing back Martin Garrow and along with him, original Stargate television co-creator Brad Wright as a consulting producer, and Stargate longtime writer, producer, and advocate Joseph Malazzi as a consulting producer, and eventually as a writer. It was kind of the best of all situations, and suddenly it's fallen apart. So citing an anonymous source with knowledge of the situation, Variety reports that executives at the studio were concerned that Garrow's take on the series, quote, would not have broad appeal beyond the franchise's already dedicated fan base. So here's that piece from Variety that originally broke this news. There's not a whole lot in here other than sort of recapping the history of Stargate. Variety points out that no plot details were ever released for Garrow's take on the show. But that's the key line here from Variety, is that according to their sources, Amazon execs were concerned that Martin's take on the series would not have broad appeal beyond the already existing fan base. We can talk about that. I want to get to a little bit more color that Deadline has added to this, but I did confirm with my sources that the news is true. The show is canceled. It's obviously devastating. It's devastating for the people who were there working on it. We know that Martin convened a writer's room back in January. They were crafting a show. They were crafting something that was an original take, that was a new story, its own thing set in the Stargate universe, but had connections with canon. I was incredibly optimistic about this show, right? As something that is not just nostalgia bait, not just fan service, but was going to be thoughtful and attentive to what had come before, respectful of what had come before, and had a lot of the original creators at the helm, right? Not just consulting, not just giving their blessing, but actually the ones who are doing the work. So those folks are out of work now, and my heart goes out to them. We know that the writer's room had more or less wrapped up, and they were working on writing scripts for the show. We did a live stream most recently with Martin Garrow here at GateWorld and on Dial the Gate back in March. And Martin told us at that time that they had started preliminary casting. They had started looking at some people. And so we were kind of anticipating maybe by the end of the summer, we'd get some casting news. We'd find out a little bit more about the characters and the setting, the premise of the show, because they were looking to start filming by September or a little bit later in the fall. Let's head over now to Deadline, which has added a little bit of additional information from their reporting as to what's happened here and what's going on. And then I'll follow up with a little bit of my own speculation. Because again, we're doing our best to answer this question of why the show was canceled, but It's such a shocking move on Amazon's part, it appears to me self-destructive move with respect to the Stargate brand and Amazon's relationship with fandom. This is Deadline's reporting. The decision to pull the plug came late in the process. I hear the show had completed a 20-week writer's room and was in pre-production in the UK. GateWorld reported first that they were going to film in the London area as their principal home base. It was explained with the new series vision and creative direction, which allegedly no longer aligned with Amazon's programming strategy. Keep that in mind. Let's talk about that in a minute. No longer aligned with Amazon's programming strategy, which implies to me at one point it did, and then it didn't. The differences apparently ran so deep, Deadline says, they required an outright axing versus retooling the existing version of the project by giving notes to Garrow, a veteran showrunner who had been signed into an overall deal by Amazon MGM Studios for the purpose of him spearheading Stargate. And we know from Martin directly that he'd been working on this show for about 2 years. This was not a fly-by-night production. This was a project that Martin developed with partners inside Amazon once they signed him to a production development deal. So this was not something that was developed wholly outside of and apart from Amazon that they just then bought, right? He didn't come in as an outsider and pitch this and they decided to buy it and then change their minds. He had been working inside Amazon with a production deal for quite a long time. And they were trying to figure out what to do with the Stargate franchise. What do we do with this really important brand that they had acquired when they bought MGM? Really important IP, intellectual property, that has been dormant more or less for 15 years. We think that this thing has potential. It's a big science fiction universe. Science fiction fans are hardcore and enthusiastic and will show up and will go online and will analyze and will talk about a show. How do you do it? How do you do it right? There were debates within Amazon for a few years as to how to do it right. And meanwhile, imagine this. Meanwhile, there are different executives at different roles, different ranks who are coming in and out of the studio. There are the higher-ups, names that you might have heard, like Jennifer Salke and Mike Hopkins, who is now the head of television. Jennifer Salke has since left Amazon. Mid-level executives with different tasks, charged with different parts of the business, television and film, animation, live action, reality. All these parts of Amazon's business, there's been sort of a revolving door of executives. And that, I think, takes us back to Deadline's article and what they've reported about some of the musical chairs behind the scenes at Amazon. Ironically, the new Stargate was greenlighted by Amazon MGM head of television, Peter Friedlander, in one of his first pickup decisions after he joined the streamer in early October. So Peter Friedlander comes to Amazon in October, and Stargate gets the green light in November. But the series falls under the purview of one of Friedlander's top lieutenants, Brett Feder, head of world building and genre series, who didn't start at Amazon until February. This hasn't been corrected yet, but I've since done a little digging. This is an error. This is Blair Feder. The two executives who had developed Stargate with Garrow had championed it, Nick Pepper, formerly head of US SVOD TV development and series, and Matt King, formerly head of tentpole genre and universe development, are both gone. Nick Pepper and Matt King were part of the development process when the show was announced, and they're not there anymore. With the former leaving, Nick Pepper leaving when Feder joined the company, and Matt King departing 2 months later when Feder restructured his team. So, back to our question. Why did Amazon cancel its new Stargate series in the middle of development before cameras had started rolling? Well, we know that they were committing money to this. This was going to be a high-budget, high-profile, prestige streaming series. So if you're going to can it, I suppose to give them a little bit of credit, it makes sense to do it before cameras start rolling and sets have been fully built and you've spent all the money. But we appear to be looking at a situation where a certain group of executives worked with Martin over the course of a couple of years, finally figured out what they were going to do with the Stargate franchise, gave it a green light, made the announcement, assembled the writer's room, started hiring people, They hired people like Oscar-winning production designer Nathan Crawley. They hired people like Emmy Award-winning visual effects supervisor Mo and Leo at Industrial Light and Magic to do the new Stargate. They were scoping out locations for the studio space in the London area. They were presumably getting ready to build sets in addition to hiring actors. And then the game of musical chairs. I'm not going to pretend to understand how the world of television executives works. But I watch Deadline, I watch the trade publications on a daily basis. And if you keep your eyes open, if you set up a Google alert for Amazon MGM Studios, you'll see it's pretty consistent. It's pretty regular. A lot of these folks don't stay in their job more than 2, 3, 4 years, some less. A show like Stargate, right, which is kind of a special case because of its history, because of the nature of its fandom, because it's a genre property, it needs an advocate. It's always needed an advocate. We know back when it was MGM dealing with the Sci-Fi Channel that Stargate needed its advocates inside, both inside MGM, people like Hank Cohen and Charlie Cohen, and also inside the network. There had to be people at Sci-Fi Channel who were fighting for the show and wanted it on their air. We know that MGM declared bankruptcy in 2010 and it was restructured. And then there was a new group of executives, a new regime through the 2010s where, different voices had different priorities. I won't say there wasn't anybody who was in favor of Stargate, but the prevailing voices apparently for most of the 2010s were opposed to a Stargate revival for whatever reason. And so there was not that advocate. Then eventually we got that advocate. We've reported on this in years past. People inside MGM, both before and after the sale to Amazon, who were Stargate fans and were advocating for this and were working hard to bring it back. I'm feeling today, if I had to give you my best answer, my best Monday morning quarterback day after the announcement, based on what we know so far, answer to the question of why Amazon canceled this show early in development after it had announced it, it's because they can't keep the executives in their jobs long enough to shepherd a show from development to greenlight to production to post-production to airing or streaming. Apparently, you've got to get someone who believes in the project to get it all the way across the finish line. Because it looks like, at least from Deadline's reporting, it looks like they believed that this Stargate show, that Martin's show specifically, fit their strategy, that this was a good way to move forward with Stargate, and it was good for the strategy of Prime Video, its programming and its genre programming specifically. And then it no longer fit the strategy. It's not because the show changed. I can guarantee you that. It's not because the show changed. It's not because of something was unexpected about Martin's idea once it went from a pitch to a developed series with episodes. It's because the strategy changed. And that's on Amazon. We're in a tough place today as a fandom. I've advocated for Amazon since their acquisition of MGM in 2022, especially since the announcement back in November of 2025, at least to the degree of let's give them a chance. Amazon, right? There's lots of critics in the comments, of course, of a lot of the shows that they've put out. And I'll let you make your own judgments about the shows that you like and what you don't like and why. I think that if there's a show on Amazon that you don't like, it probably is more the fault of the writers and producers of that show than the executives. There was every indication, right, including from Martin Garrow himself to the fans, that Amazon was going to let them make the show that they wanted to make, that Amazon was actively working with them, right? People like Nick Pepper and Matt King were actively working with him to develop a show that fit the strategy until it didn't, until the strategy changed. So I want to end this video by suggesting what's probably obvious, which is that Amazon has really shot themselves in the foot here. This is a delicate balance. This is a fragile property, a fragile situation in Stargate. How do you revive a beloved science fiction franchise that ran for over 350 episodes, multiple movies, and still has a really active fan base that is global, that is engaged? It's kind of the perfect scenario for a studio, right? If they want to bring back a franchise like this, your audience is built in, your core fan base. We're not just the viewers. We're the ones who are going to recruit your new viewers. You want to expand beyond the core fan base? We are the ones who are going to do it. Your marketing team, great. Spend money, hire a marketing team, get eyes on the first episode. But you got to make a good show, which Martin was doing. Martin and his team, I'm absolutely confident we're going to make a great show. But you need your fan base. Your fan base are your ambassadors. You need your fan base to be the people who start the word of mouth, who are the ones telling their friends, who are, getting their friends to watch, who are setting up watch parties. You don't revive a franchise like Stargate without the fan base. Whether it's a continuation of the existing universe or it's something brand new with the IP, and you just start with that big gray ring and nothing else, you still need existing fans. Amazon has unfortunately done tremendous damage to its relationship with Stargate's fan base. I understand a lot of folks in the comments are mad right now. We're still in the early days of dealing with this stunning news. If you're mad, you can be mad. If you're sad, you can be sad. But I would hope that we will come together as a fandom and we'll channel towards something, right? Towards something positive, keeping the flame lit, because there will be some new Stargate at some point. I can't imagine it would be as perfect a scenario as getting the original creators to come back and continue the television universe, continue the mythology that we know and love. Possibilities for old favorites to come back and make guest appearances. I can't imagine that what they come up with next will be this perfect, but there will be something eventually, and we'll have to deal with that when we know more about it. But we're going, as David Reed, my friend over on Dial the Gate, said in his video this morning, we're heading back into the void with Destiny, that void between galaxies, and we don't know how long the crossing is going to be. We don't know if it's going to take months or if it's going to take years. If they're starting from scratch, I imagine the wait that we're in for is probably on the order of years and not months. But I could be wrong. I want to know what you think. Post it down in the comments. How do you feel about this news? And what positive suggestions do you have for moving forward now that we know that, boy, I hate to say this, now that we know that our beloved franchise is owned by a studio that is so fickle, even when they love it, even when they advocate for it, even when they're completely on our side, if there's an executive turnover that happens at the wrong time, somebody could just decide to blow it up. It's hard to trust a studio in that situation. So I understand that people move back to a sort of I'll believe it when I see it situation with Amazon. How do we move forward with knowing that Stargate is owned by this studio that behaves in this way towards its fandom? I want to hear from you. Post it in the comments. Check out the website over at gateworld.net. A huge thanks once again to our channel members. Channel members help keep the lights on here at GateWorld. We're an independent, fan-created enterprise here, both on our website and here on YouTube. Thank you to everybody who has commented, to everybody who has signed up, who subscribed to follow the channel. If you don't have a few bucks to throw at us as a channel member, that's great. Just subscribe to the channel. That's a huge show of support. Share this video. It's bad news, but share it with a friend you know who loves Stargate and maybe was excited about a new series coming back and is now going to have to grieve with the rest of us. Let me know what you guys think in the comments, and I'll see you in the next one.